Hello, my name's Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPLGraduates. Welcome back to another video. Where in today's video, we're going to be going into our teams ahead of Game Week 23. As we spoke about, there is a double game week coming up just around the corner, so we are starting to finalise our teams ahead of that double game week, which is going to be really, really interesting. Without further ado, let's jump into Josh's team.
Okay then, so yeah, getting into my team, just a brief recap on last week. We got a small green arrow again. It just seems like a small couple of 100k green arrows in a row. So it broke the top 1 million at last. It's been a while, but we're finally back in there, which is good. So 900k roughly the rank at the moment. Really decent heading into this, period where lots of chips are going to be used. I've got all of them ready to use as well. So yeah, hopefully we can get that down even further in these upcoming game weeks. There's a 7-hour time difference between me and Ben right now. So if that's not worth enough to hit the subscribe button, make sure you do as well. So yeah, getting in goal, Raya, Wolves away at the moment. It's interesting with this Arsenal defence. Obviously, they haven't got Saliba at the time of recording. He's not been in training. We don't really know the extent of the injury there, but it would definitely put me off a double up. I think having one of them is still valid though, because the fixtures are decent. Barring Manchester City next week in that double, they've got some good fixtures and clean sheetable fixtures outside of it. It'll be, again, we're unsure what the update in terms of Cunha is as well, whether he'll play. Obviously, he's trying to force a move out, is what it seems on the outside from Wolves. Whether he's still going to play or not will be interesting. So, obviously, a Wolves without Cunha is going to be way less threatening than a Wolves with him. So, hopefully, he isn't playing for my clean sheet's sake. Trent in the defence, again, been sort of a good asset since I brought him in. We've got a 15-pointer and an 11-pointer out of him since I've had him. So yeah, more than happy to have him obviously for this upcoming double. I think he is worth the value. I know he's not been as attacking as what we've seen in seasons gone by, but he seems to be popping up with these double-digit returns, which no other Liverpool asset barring Mo Salah has been doing. Anthony Robinson, got him with United at home this week at the moment. I do plan on making a defensive transfer, as you can see, obviously with Colwill away at City. I don't really want to play him either. It's probably going to be Rico Lewis who makes way. Obviously, started him last week. He's just not getting the minutes with obviously Mateus Nunes playing right back at the moment. So, yeah, it will be a transfer there. My planned moves at the moment do involve bringing in Canate for that third Liverpool spot. For Lewis, I do have to facilitate some funds out of the way, which I'll move on to in a moment. But yeah, that is the plan at the moment, mainly because I don't really like any of the other defenders. So that is why I'm leaning towards the Liverpool double up in defence rather than going for the attack. Obviously, the upside isn't necessarily there with them, but I'm more than happy to take the floor, especially with the fixtures this week as well included. I think a clean sheet against Ipswich is pretty nailed on, touch wood. So yeah, what's your thoughts on that defence, Ben? And bearing in mind that Canate is probably going to be the one instead of Colwell.
Yeah, I think like the defence will be very solid this week. Of course, there's considerations to make. I know Robinson's been playing well, but the fixture run does toughen up a little bit for Fulham over the next sort of 10, 15 game weeks. Really, it doesn't look too great for them going forward. So there's consideration for that, but I agree with you this week. In terms of the upside, you've got to just get rid of one of Colwill or Lewis. You've not really got a choice in the matter there, because I don't like either of them going forwards, and not just that game in isolation either. I do think it's interesting what you say about the Arsenal defence. We'll have to just see how affected they are by the loss of Saliba and whether that impacts the XG numbers that they concede. I do think if you are doubling up on the defence, Liverpool's probably the best one, followed by Arsenal to do that with. So we'll just have to see. Obviously, I'm not planning on doing the double up in Liverpool defence, so it'll be interesting to see how that sort of turns out. Because for the double game week, both of the teams are relatively attacking, especially Bournemouth. So we'll just have to see. But I don't mind the double up on the Liverpool defence at all. I'm just thinking I want to go for the upside.
Okay, then, so moving on into the midfield, we've got Cole Palmer up first. He's got Manchester City away this week, and goal threat from him has definitely dipped over the recent game weeks. Chelsea in general just not performing to the level that they have been. Obviously, first win in a few last game week. So I expect it to return. I'm definitely not going to be selling him at any time soon. The effective ownership is there, so definitely don't really want to go against him because he does pick up the returns here and there. Mo Salah, I'm going to go to quickly, just in terms of EO. Again, super high. Happy to captain him again, despite the first time blanking back-to-back game weeks this season, and it's January, nearly February. Absolutely mental from him. So yeah, you got to take it on the chin. He's been so reliable throughout the whole of the season that 2 blanks in a row is not going to put me off captaining him against Ipswich, who obviously have only just shipped 6 goals to Manchester City. So I expect Liverpool to have some fun out there at the weekend. We've got Gordon with Southampton away. Obviously came away with the blank against Bournemouth. I thought Newcastle just got outplayed, to be honest. Iraiola's just got such a well-working machine with that Bournemouth team. They seem to be beating most sides at the moment. So yeah, not too worried about that, to be honest. Thought he was unlucky not to get a return in that game anyway. Was definitely much more lively than Isak in that game. And then it's Bruno Fernandes, who I do propose to sell this week at the moment just to fund that sort of defensive transfer. I'm a little bit reluctant just because he does tick along with returns. He gets a return every other week pretty much. Got the penalty last game week, but with the way United are playing and just the toothlessness really going forwards, only the 1 shot on target against Brighton, and it was the penalty. I'm going to sell up for now and then maybe look to get Ahmad in at a later date when they sort of have those nicer fixtures. I think they have like Everton, Ipswich, Leicester around the sort of the blank game week 29. So yeah, we'll probably look to do that. I think Ahmad, pound for pound, is probably much better value as well, and it will obviously allow me to save some of those funds. The replacement that I'm looking at is going to be Brian Mbeumo. Decent fixtures for Brentford going forwards. They don't blank in 29, which is my proposed sort of strategy at the moment, is to save that free hit for later in the season. I think I can do it with the players that I own at the moment. So yeah, obviously I've got 4 free transfers as it stands. So I propose to use 2 of them at the moment this week. So what's the thoughts on the midfield, Ben, and those sort of transfer plans with Bruno coming out?
Yeah, I think the transfer plans are sensible to start looking ahead towards that blank game week, especially if you're not going to use that free hit. You're going to want to sort of make those strategic transfers to sort of bear that in mind. I don't mind the downgrade to sort of fund the move to sort of upgrade elsewhere. I think that's sensible. And yeah, the rest of the midfield is really decent. I think the Gordon fixture is going to be really good for him on paper. That's the perfect fixture for him. Yeah, agree with the captaincy pick as well. I think that's probably going to be the best captain option for this game week. Albeit, there's going to be a couple of managers that go sort of a little bit differential with it. But yeah, overall, really don't mind it at all.
Okay then, so moving on to the forward line then, we've got Chris Wood up first. Obviously, back-to-back 3 times. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but he's basically scored a lot of goals in recent weeks. 12 points against Southampton. Happy with that. Obviously, the EO is definitely not as low as what it was when I brought him in, I think it's 6 weeks ago now, but happy to get the returns nonetheless. Bournemouth away this week. Definitely not sort of guaranteed returns there. Bournemouth, for me, just super impressive. Just watching them, even before sort of last weekend, when they came to Old Trafford, just dismantled United, which most teams do, but they did it in a pretty fashionable way. So yeah, I don't think it's sort of a go-ahead green fixture for Forest, but Forest equally have been playing super well so far this season. Isak's on the vice captaincy. I expect the EO to be well over 100% with the Southampton away fixture. Captaincy wise, just the home fixture for Salah sort of just trumps it a little bit for me. I think Southampton in general have improved, especially last 3 to 4 game weeks, from an offensive standpoint, which sort of helps their defence because they're not going to be just sat back for the whole game. Saying that though, I do expect goals for Newcastle, and if you wanted to go captain Isak over Salah, I would definitely not be questioning you. And then João Pedro with Everton at home this week. He's starting over Morgan Rogers at the moment. It's one of those 50-50s that you tend to get wrong. Rodgers, obviously without the penalties, is the main reason that I will start João Pedro ahead of him. Obviously Everton at home. Everton defensively have been decent this season. I just think, like I mentioned, I don't know if it was in this video or the transfer targets one. I think with them being more sort of good going forwards, they are giving up a few more chances so far in a small sample size under Moyes. So yeah, João Pedro starts. I'll be keen to hear Ben's ideas on that. What's the thoughts on that front line, Ben?
Yeah, I like the front line. I agree. I think Isak is, going to be a highly popular captain this week, just given Salah's back-to-back blanks, and I think you'd be very, very brave to be going against Salah this week against Ipswich at home. It's a really difficult benching decision because the stats almost sort of point towards Rodgers to start in your team in terms of like the XGI over the last few game weeks. But João Pedro has penalties, and that's such a key factor, especially Everton at home. That could be sort of quite an intense game. I do see sort of like a potential penalty as well. Brighton have got to improve at some point. It could be this week. It's almost a case of penalty taker versus the stats. It's head against the heart. It's a difficult one, and you're almost sort of likely just to flip a coin. In terms of sort of considerations of benching elsewhere, like you could maybe bench Brian and Burmo for the sort of like difficult entry point fixture before sort of getting into that good run. It could be any one of those three that you bench, but it's certainly going to be a difficult decision to make, and you might just have to make it based on what the anticipated EO is just to protect yourself. Okay, so moving on into my team, and we're on the back of 5 red arrows in a row. It's not been great. It's been a bit of a tough time, but I've said this a couple of weeks ago. I've just not got to panic with this. I haven't got anything in the bank at the moment, but I do have 3 free transfers. I'm definitely going to be using 2 free transfers. I'm almost 50-50 on whether I use that 3rd free transfer. It's really going to be dependent on the personnel that I bring in using that 2nd free transfer, on whether I need to fund it with a 3rd one. So to start off in goal, we've got Raya. I'm going to be very tempted to double up on the Arsenal defence this week, just given it's Wolves away, pretty sort of relatively toothless. Cunha wants to leave, so if he does even play, like if he doesn't play, then the appeal for a double Arsenal defence goes through the roof for me. So it's likely that the man to make way will be Anthony Robinson. Just like the fixture is not bad because United are so bad going forwards, but if there's a team that I back to, score randomly, it'd be Manchester United to do that. So yeah, that's the sort of issue I've got there. Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, is going in, and for the double game week as well, he's going to be fantastic. I have no doubts that there's going to be sort of a couple of returns over the next couple of game weeks. So more than happy to have in. Same goes for Lewis Hall. He didn't play too well last game week. He came off relatively early, but Newcastle's team didn't play too great either, right? So can't think too much into that. It's a really good fixture for him to play. So very excited to own him. Josh, what's the thoughts on the defence and potentially starting Timber there ahead of Robinson?
Yeah, I think you just got to wait for the info on that. One on Saliba as well, just in terms of his availability. If Saliba plays and Cunha's out, it's a no-brainer. Again, Cunha playing, I'd be maybe slightly more hesitant just because obviously Robinson carries that attacking threat, and I think United defensively have been getting absolutely caught out in those sort of wide areas in between the wing-backs and wide centre-backs. So there could be potential there for Anthony Robinson to get attacking returns. Again, clean sheets not off the table either, just with how poor they have been going forwards. I know they've been scoring goals, but like I mentioned with Bruno, there's only 1 shot on target against Brighton at home. Obviously, they play Rangers Thursday, so another sort of look into them to see if they improve at all going forwards. But for me, I wouldn't say Robinson's a bad pick this week either way. And like you say, doubling up on Arsenal defence, I think I'd probably keep it going forwards for the next few weeks as well. I know a lot of people are probably tempted to jump off it. I think they've only got like 2 clean sheets in the last 9 games. The fixtures are there for them going forwards, even with or without Saliba.
Okay, so moving on into the midfield, and we'll talk about the transfer, the first transfer that we're looking at to start with. Diogo Jota, with the injury, is not going to be in my team come the deadline. I've got a little bit of a conundrum with who I transfer in, and I'm not going to explain just yet who I'm going to transfer in, just because it will become a lot clearer on what needs to potentially happen here with my team. But he will be going out this game week, and there's a few different options that I can look at for the next couple of game weeks. So I will be bringing in someone. Ismail Assar is in there at the moment with a nice home fixture against Brentford. I do think with Brentford sort of like leaky defence away from home, it's almost sort of one of the perfect fixtures for him. So very likely to start him this game week. Cole Palmer, of course, with the little bit more of a difficult fixture, but City are leaky defensively, and he loves playing against Manchester City as well, with it being his former club. Salah on the captaincy is absolutely nailed on. There's no doubt I'm going away from it, considering how poor Ipswich were. They've made some good signings, Ipswich. It's going to take time for them to bed in, let's remember. So, yeah, that's the midfield. Josh, what are the thoughts? Is Jota worth the transfer out? Is Salah worth the start this week?
Yeah, obviously Jota, I think regardless is definitely worth the transfer out. I think even if he's got injured, he's come back, he's got injured again. It just seems to be sort of consistent with him. So despite having such good data, I would be getting rid of him for now and chasing a better upside pick in that Liverpool team. I think Salah for me is a good option. Just been super unlucky. Like there's been numerous occasions where he's had like a pass to an assist or something like that. Obviously the injury wasn't great. He picked up that hamstring injury and probably limited his minutes last week. But I expect him to be sort of back to full fitness this week, getting close to 90. Brentford at home again, like you mentioned, is a really, really nice fixture for him. And in general, the fixtures for midfielders aren't great in the sort of foreseeable, and Salah sort of provides a good value, especially at that sort of price point. 6.5 and under. I can't really see too much better. So yeah, I quite like the Salah pick this week.
Okay, so moving on to the strike force, and this is where we'll go a little bit more in detail into the potential transfer plans. I've got a couple of options that I'm currently thinking of at the moment. Of course, we've got Alexander Isak on the vice captaincy this week. That's going to remain as it is, despite knowing that he's going to be over 100% EO by sort of quite a margin, I think. Nicholas Jackson in there, who I'm not happy with at the moment to own. He's accumulating so much XGI and just not finishing off his chances. He's getting yellow cards. It's just a bit of a nightmare at the moment. I think last week was almost sort of like the last decent fixture that I wanted to really hold him for. If he'd scored and cashed in on XG, I maybe sort of would have been sort of thinking a little bit hindsight bias and maybe tempted to keep him. But I think with a double coming up, I'm going to have to transfer him out. We've obviously got João Pedro as well in there. Again, 50-50 coin flip between who's starting between him, Rodgers and Sarr. So the transfer plans really for me, I'm going to be transferring out Jackson, and I'm going to be most likely transferring in Cody Gakpo, and then with Jota to transfer him out and bring in either Mbeumo or Anthony Gordon. For me, I feel like having one Newcastle attacker for this week in isolation is going to be really risky against the Southampton team, which is why I'm tempted to go with Anthony Gordon. I've also got the exact money to do Jackson to Gakpo, Jota to Gordon. If I was wanting to get in Mbeumo for the next few fixtures, I'd then have to do an additional transfer of Robinson down to potentially an Everton double game weeker.
Is it really loud?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, mate. You can carry on from now.
Yeah. So yeah, the potential is, of course, Mbeumo. I'd have to make that third free transfer and use all of my free transfers to do that. At the moment, I'm leaning towards more the Anthony Gordon route and, saving that additional transfer in case we get an injury to any one of these three Liverpool players that we've got. Because if we do, I'm going to have to sort of make amendments and adjustments. Of course, with it being sort of like, if I get an injury to Cody Gakpo, I'm almost sort of it almost forced my hand to go Darwin or take a hit, which is not ideal at all. So, Josh, that's the team. That's the potential transfer plans. What are your thoughts? Which option sort of entices you more?
Yeah, it is a difficult one. I think in general, obviously, if you're getting Gordon in, there's a high probability that he will blank later down the line in 29. And already your team's going to have 7, well, including Gordon, it'll be like at least 7 blankers that game week. So, yeah, it might, although it's a good pick for this week with Gordon, I think this is why I haven't looked at Lewis Hall too much, despite it being such a good fixture. It's just because, obviously, later down the line, it's probably going to require a transfer or a benching or something like that. And obviously, you've got a lot of value tied up in Lewis Hall. So yeah, it's just one of those ones where it's like, do you want to bring him in and flip-flop him out? I think Mbeumo offers that sort of decent fixtures. Okay, it's not as good this week, but over the long period, I think it's better than Newcastle. And obviously, he doesn't blank in 29 as well. So I think you have to sort of bear in mind your strategy. I think Gakpo's a fine pick. If he gets injured, he's just really unlucky. Obviously, it's definitely something that you got to think about. But for me, I think it's the logical transfer right now. If you're bringing out a forward and you can afford Cody Gakpo, he'd be the one that I would be going with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost a case this game week of, I'm almost going, if I go and get Gordon in, I'm committing to that free hit in 29, which, to be honest, I think I want to do anyway, because the fixtures in 28 for Liverpool is pretty decent. The fixtures for some of these other teams are really decent before, so I want to sort of maximise on that. Of course, knowing that I can't free hit then after is a little bit of risk. I've got to be really strategic, but it's a difficult one. I'm leaning more towards the 2 than the free transfers. Of course, in your situation, the free transfers would make sense, and bringing in Burmo in. I'm just not sure it's going to be sort of the case for me with just how many potential blankers I'm going to have.
Cool, that wraps up our Gameweek23 team reveals. So a little bit of strategy talk as well at the end, which is super important. If you haven't already seen, we did release a full video on chip strategy for the season, so that'll be linked in the bio, or description should I say. So yeah, make sure you do go check that out, because it is super important. Even now, looking ahead at these, Game Week 29, Game Week 33, these sort of big game weeks on the FPL calendar, your transfers now can really affect what you might have to do in those game weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, if you like the video, give it a big like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL Graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good game week, everyone.
Oh, you may rise, but you'll never make me wanna stick